Hey everybody, it's ItsKindaBernt. I'm ItsKindaBernt. Wanted to talk about something that's been making the news cycles for a while now. I'm not going to go into the history of it necessarily. You are free to look that up yourself, but the short version is that Discovery owns Warner Brothers now. David Zaslav is the one in charge. He has been very vocal about how WB used to run its movies, more specifically its DC output, and wanted to take advantage of the things that they had, their IPs like Batman, Superman, all the stuff that they had more or less been sort of not handling very well. And recently he put James Gunn of Guardians of the Galaxy fame and Peter Safran, who has a history as a producer of horror films, in charge of the new DC studios, with the aims of directly competing with Marvel and the MCU, and in some way more greatly resembling the MCU, although we've yet to see what exactly that means or what form this DCU will take. Generally, this was met with a lot of praise, a lot of positive outlooks. James Gunn has a lot of supporters, and just this general idea that they're going to right the ship has been met with a lot of positive vibes. But the crap hit the fan sort of recently. We don't exactly know what's going on, and I hesitate to speak on anything right now, given that we don't really know what is happening. James Gunn himself has not actually presented the plans for the DCU, as it is now called, to David Zaslav and the people involved at the top, but it's been making the rounds lately that a lot of things that we thought were in the pipeline for DC are no longer happening. Wonder Woman 3 was canceled. There's rumors that there was a Michael Keaton movie or a pair of Michael Keaton movies where he returned as Batman that are no longer happening. Of course, there was the Batgirl cancellation. There's rumor that the next Aquaman is probably the last Aquaman for Jason Momoa, probably the franchise as a whole, which puts into question stuff like Shazam and whether or not there's going to be anything after the second movie of that. And maybe most notably that Henry Cavill, after his very much publicized leaving of The Witcher to more or less reprise his role as Superman, there were rumors that he was going to get a Man of Steel 2, that he was back as one of the main pillars of the movies, and now we're hearing that that's not the case at all. James Gunn, to his credit, has come out and tried to clarify things, but despite the fact that he has this history of clearing things up as best he can, he was forced to use a lot of PR talk, which is just another way of saying he didn't really clear up anything. It was an attempt to just touch base with the fan base and make it clear that, hey, we are listening, we are trying to figure stuff out, but nothing has been confirmed yet. So a lot of this is still up in the air. A lot of people don't really know what's happening. But the main takeaway for a lot of people in this situation is that it seems, on some level, James Gunn is going for a full-on reboot of the DC Cinematic Universe, or the DCU, as it will be called now. That is, no previous talent, no previous actors or directors or creatives from previous projects that were started under the old regime at WB. Everything is going to be wiped clean. Everything is going to be started over. Except if rumors are to be believed that Jason Momoa may have been recast as Lobo, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. And a lot of people are upset by this. A lot of people, I think, were under the impression that after The Flash comes out, there was going to be some sort of reset button. There were rumors, of course, that the ending of Flash sort of soft reboots the DCEU, and if not, that there was going to be some sort of build-up to a Crisis film, like Crisis on Infinite Earths, in which case they would have a very public, self-aware reboot, and they would keep what worked, like keeping Henry Cavill as Superman. That's something that a lot of people have advocated for a long time. It seemed like even Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson wanted it. Cavill leaving The Witcher seemed like a pretty definitive sign that he was back as Superman. But there's a lot of misinformation going around, a lot of things that we don't truly know, and a lot of things that's mostly conjecture. So it's hard to speak on, and I'm not going to speak on that. The thought I wanted to speak on was this. Is a reboot, a full-on reboot, a good idea? I do like a lot of things that were established in this version of the DC universe on film. I like Henry Cavill, I like Gal Gadot, I like Jason Momoa even, in his role as Aquaman. I like Zachary Levi as Shazam, I like Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, but being objective, the current version of DC in movies has been built on not very sure plans, very knee-jerk reactions, and not having really solid plans. I would even go so far as to say that ever since the Snyderverse, quote-unquote, began, the DC has basically functioned on a status quo of constant damage control. Whereas Marvel has had the forethought to have decades worth of plans in place, but also the flexibility to change those plans if something were to happen, like the unfortunate death of a cast member or a director leaving or something to that effect. WB and DC have never been run that well, unfortunately. I don't really know who's to blame. It's not really a game you can win, but I think it's safe to say that the previous regime did not hold a tight ship. And they saw that Disney and Marvel were benefiting from the use of their IPs, and the sad thing was that WB has always had ownership of their DC IPs and never used them well. It's not the same situation at all like when Marvel was facing bankruptcy and then started selling off the movie rights to all of its characters, and then slowly but surely had to buy all of them back, except for maybe the Hulk and Namor, which cannot be in their own movies anymore, but have to be side characters. DC was always in a position to leverage their characters and use them well, and they just never did, outside of maybe Batman. There was an attempt to catch up, but there was not a plan, and there was not a lot of confidence or competence in how these characters were handled. I'm probably going to make enemies by saying this, but I think choosing Zack Snyder to be at the forefront of this was a mistake. Now, I like Man of Steel, but I like Man of Steel in spite of what it is. I personally loved the trailers. I personally loved how the movie looked. I personally liked the idea of a Superman movie as a first contact movie. I actually thought that was kind of brilliant. But the movie itself is not great. And every movie since then has been built on this idea that they could build off of the Man of Steel, not just the story, but the look, the feel, the tone, and overall a sort of fundamental misunderstanding of what was being done. And as much as I like some of the things that they have done since that movie, everything that they have done since then has been the best of a bad situation. They might have gotten a good cast or they've gotten some good talent involved here and there, but there is no clear plan. There is no cohesion. There's not even cohesion when it comes to there being some sort of multiverse at work. It just fundamentally does not work nearly as well as the MCU. And people can talk about how vanilla the MCU is and how all the movies are cookie cutter and they all seem the same and feel the same and they're not quote unquote movies or film or cinema, and we're not going to have that conversation today. But I don't think it's a irrational or controversial statement to say that things were just not handled well as they could have been handled at DC. And I've got to say, if Gunn and Safran are aiming for a complete reboot with actors and talent and directors and what have you, just wipe the slate clean and start over, I think it's probably the best course of action. That hurts me to say because I think that some people involved never got a fair shake. I think that Henry Cavill is an intensely likable Superman, an intensely likable human being who never got a real shake at being a good Superman. And that hurts me, especially when it seems like saying that he was finally going to get a shot. We're going to see a happy Superman, a version of Superman that he wanted to play. But I hate to say it, at the cost of people that I really like in these roles, I think it might be the best choice. I know that a lot of people are going to be upset. I know that a lot of people are going to rally against it. I know that it's already trending on Twitter that they should fire James Gunn. But I'm sorry. I'm sorry when I say that I've always believed that the Snyderverse and the current version of the DC cinematic universe is edgelord nonsense. I've never liked it as a whole. I don't think it works. I think it completely misses the point on a lot of things, and I think ultimately it's probably best to reboot, if that's in fact what they're doing. I don't know that's what they're doing. And it seems that from James Gunn's responses, that's not entirely the truth. So we could see in the next few weeks that all of this was wrong. That's not at all what they were going to do. So again, it's weird to be commenting on something that we haven't seen to its logical end. but I figured I would speak on it because that's honestly how I feel. If we were to get a reboot, it would maybe hurt for a minute, but mostly I think it's probably the best course of action. It makes sense from a marketing standpoint. I think to keep certain things that worked and certain people that people liked would just confuse casual moviegoers, and I think ultimately maybe it's the best course of action to take a few years off, plan it out, and then come back with a completely new slate. Just finish up the movies that are in the pipeline for now and then just move on. Stuff like the Matt Reeves Batman universe that they're currently doing and the upcoming Joker sequel with Lady Gaga and stuff like Blue Beetle, those are safe. They're not going to be canceled or changed as far as we're aware, but they're also probably not going to be incorporated in the main universe. They're probably going to finish up what they started there, and then they'll probably wipe that clean too someday. So we're looking at several years of retinkering and rethinking, and we'll probably not know the full breadth of what's going on for a while. But I do know that James Gunn is supposed to be submitting his views on the future, the Bible and the outline for future DC content, which is going to include movies, TV shows, video games, just a lot of different integrated things. A shared universe like we've never seen before, which he apparently likens more to Star Wars than the MCU, so we'll have to see what that means. But I will say, whatever happens, don't freak out. Something that I've learned doing this for many years is that it's not that important. It's not worth getting upset about. Just hope for the best. These are ultimately just movies and things that we kill our time with, and I know that representation is important and getting these details right are important for fans, but there are more important things in the world. These are people who are just trying to get through their day, doing their jobs and doing the things that they love to do, and I think when we start lobbing death threats and saying horrible things to people like that online, I think we mostly just show that this is not the side of humanity we want to show. So, again, if they reboot, it's not going to kill me. It might suck, it might hurt for a little while, but we will get over it. And personally, I'm looking forward to whatever it is James Gunn has planned, whatever that may be. I think he's a great director and creator. I think he knows what he's doing. I think he has an obvious love for the source material, but he's not afraid to do new and interesting things. So I personally look forward to what he has planned. Anywho, if you would like to have me make more videos like this and hear more topics on stuff like this, like and subscribe, hit the bell, let me know, comment, and I'll continue to make stuff like this. I'm really enjoying it. I really enjoy getting back to this format, getting into this new format. It was kind of like the classic format I used to use when I was reviewing movies, so maybe I'll keep doing it. Anyway, I'll see you later, friends. Burn out.